You're listening to the 169th edition of the Bitachon podcast. And we continue in the pasukim from King David, collated by Reb Zundel. Elikim lanu machseh, the passuk says in chapter 46, verse 2 of Tehillim. Elikim lanu machseh, our God is a protection for us. Va'oiz ezra, and He is a solid helper. He is the power of help. Bitzaros, when we face off with difficulties. Nimtza ma'od, He is very much found. He's there. He's very much there. We're going to see, as we discuss this passuk, we're going to see that the idea is that when we have troubles, we don't ask for troubles, we don't ask for pain, we don't ask for difficulties in life. But when we do have them, and it's been my experience to be true, perhaps it's been your experience as well, Hashem is there. Hashem is felt even more so when we go through challenges. Certainly we see it since October 7th here in the land of Israel, throughout the world. Says the Medrash Shecher Tov, Kol tzar v'tzor shemagas elenu nimtza lanu. Whenever we have a difficulty that comes to us, that appears to us, so there's different ways of approaching it, right? If you would go Melech Basar V'Dam Amrilai, if you go to a king of flesh and blood to ask for help, so he'll say to you, Azar B'Tzara, and you say, I'm sorry, and you say to him, please help us with our challenge. So he doesn't know what to do until you get there, right? A king, a human being, is not omniscient. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't have a vision of the future. He may be intuitive. He may have an idea what might happen, but he doesn't know what happens till it happens. God is not that way. He is a helper. When it comes to difficulties, he's very much found. He's there. Anytime a difficulty is placed in front of us, or that we come across, so Hashem is there for us. Hashem already knows what's going to happen. He knows every eventuality. He knows the solution before the actual problem comes. So that's the indication of our verse. And it's also what it says in the passuk, that God is with us in pain. God is with us in our pain. It means that God always knows. You can't surprise God with a challenge that He couldn't have anticipated. Only a king of flesh and blood can you surprise with a challenge that he couldn't have anticipated. That's the Medrash Shecher Tov. He brings here from the Meir Tehillim. Kim lanu machseh va'oz. Passuk says that God is our protector. Machseh means someone who covers us. He covers us. He's got our back. He's our strength. This means to say that God protects us from all evil. And God gives us strength in order to be able to fight our enemies. Okay, so think about that in the current situation. All of the brilliant ideas that we have been able to use, the drones and the different ways of attacking and hitting only our enemies and limiting civilian casualties, all of this brilliance, all of this strength, be able to accomplish a mission all the way as far as Taiman, as far as Yemen, all of this strength comes from Hashem. God is our protector and He is our strength as we fight against our enemies. Although God is not always close. We need to understand what this means, because of course we can always access Hashem. Of course we can always call out to God. But not in every situation is it easy, I would say, to access Hashem. But as this passuk tells us, an amazing thing. Again, we don't ask for problems, we don't ask for challenges. But we need to know that in the place of challenge, when we are experiencing difficulties, God is found there more. God is more apparent. God is easier to call upon. Why? It can be because of the fact that Hashem doesn't like to see his creations in pain. We mentioned this in a previous podcast. We don't ask for problems, we don't ask for troubles, but we need to know that when they come, sometimes Hashem uses it as a tool, because God knows that when we're in trouble, he has more rachmanas, he has more mercy upon us. He can't look at us being in trouble. So sometimes he brings the trouble so that he will help us. Another reason that Hashem will help us more so in a time of trouble is because we become more mukhna, we become more subjugated to Hashem. We become more humble. We become more humbled. We place ourselves in Hashem's hands. We call out to God. And therefore, because we have made ourselves more ready to receive that which Hashem wants to give, therefore Hashem indeed gives it. Therefore Hashem indeed comes to our rescue. That's the Meir Tehillos. Brings the Sforno. Our passuk. Even the troubles that we brought upon ourselves, because of our mistakes, because of our choices, because of the bad deeds that we've done. So the result is negative. But at the same time, it's an amazing thing. Hashem is more found in that situation, even though we brought it upon ourselves. God is still found more than regularly in nature, in natural circumstances. Okay, so it makes me think of how, sometimes a child wants attention. So that child acts out. And the parent punishes them, but the child gets attention. It's negative attention, but child would rather have negative attention than no attention. And in a certain sense, and I'm not recommending this, but in a certain sense, when we do what's wrong, so we get negative attention from Hashem, we experience difficulties, punishments, and then Hashem is closer to us. Because as Hashem meets out his divine justice, so then he's there, he's with us, he's next to us. It's easier for us to ask him in that moment. It's ironic. We've done what's wrong, we've done something wrong. Hashem comes to punish us. But in that moment, Hashem is close and we say, Hashem, help us, and he's more likely to help us. And that, by the way, as we'll see, let's just read it inside from the Medrash Chachamim. It's indicated by the passuk itself, because it says Elikim Lanu Machseh. Elikim is the name of Hashem, which indicates his divine justice. Hashem, the divine judge, he protects us. He is our protector. Also, it comes out that even there's two parts of it. There's what we were saying right before, which is that in the moment of retribution, so Hashem is close to us, and therefore we can call out to him and he answers us. But sometimes Hashem, this is another aspect of it, sometimes Hashem, even in his Midas Hadin, even in his attribute of justice, he uses it to protect us. He protects us with his attribute of justice. We could have different understandings of it. It could be, the fact that he's protecting us from ourselves, mistakes that we're making, so that the mistakes don't continue, and so that we need to be protected from ourselves. Okay. The Yavid says, "Elikim hayolanu bazeh agolas machseva oiz." The Yavid says that Hashem, for us, in this galus, in our exile, in our difficult times, God is our protector, he is our strength. Hashem is not like a fair weather friend, somebody who loves you and takes care of you when things are going well for you, when everything is serene in your life. But at times of trouble, they split. They're out of there. And sometimes a person has a friend who's a friend. things are going well, but when you get in trouble, they're nowhere to be seen. And even if they do stick around, they're not going to support you at the same level as they did when you were successful. But our passuk indicates that God is there more than ever. When we have a time of serenity, you can say it in just a passuk shot, very simple understanding. When we live in a time of serenity, when things are going our way, we forget about Hashem. We turn away from Hashem. Oh, I got this, right? We depend on ourselves. Why? Because you think we know all the answers and we're okay. But Hashem doesn't get upset at us and turn away from us when the going gets tough. When the going gets tough, when things are difficult, Hashem steps in. Hashem is there closer to us. Hashem is more present. Hashem is more available for us to call out, and we do. Right? And it makes sense. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but it makes sense that when we're in trouble and we call out to Hashem, Hashem comes there. Hashem comes there. We are humbled. Naturally, we're humbled in a state of difficulty. Says the Al-Sheikh. Before the Al-Sheikh, there's a little note here. They say over in the name of the Brisker of in the time of the War of Independence in 1948 in Israel, there was a shortage of food. He had a certain health issue, the Brisker of, and because of that health issue, he would eat a certain kind of bread, and he would have more than a regular person as far as that kind of bread. And he had no choice but to eat the regular kind of bread. He didn't have his more healthy bread, the bread that would keep him healthy. So even though physically he needed the stronger bread, the more healthy bread, it didn't cause him to, the fact that he didn't have it, his health was not weakened in that time. Amar Agriz, Shazam Avur Khan, the Brisker Rav said that this is what it says over here. This is our passuk. L'kim lanu machzeh, Hashem protects us. Sheyesh siyata u'shmir miyuchedes mishmaya. This is amazing, and this is obviously appropriate for our time here in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. We're facing off with another war. Some say it's called a milchemet itkomamut. It's also a kind of war of independence, a war of survival. But you should know that in this war of survival, and it's not the same, obviously, as 1948, we're not experiencing any kind of shortages of food, but there is certainly a shortage of emotional strength, and there's a challenge hearing about families losing loved ones, constantly being fired upon in different directions. But he says an amazing thing, that in the time of difficulty, in the time of tzara, there's an extra protection. There's an extra strength that Hashem gives. Ezra b'ma'oid li tais b'tzara. Our pasuk says, "Ba'oiz Ezra b'tzara is nimtza ma'oid." There's an extra strength, and this is true of every individual. If you're going through a hard time, if I'm going through a hard time, when we go through hard times, heaven forbid, Hashem strengthens us in an extra measure. Yesral yomim ketikunim, more so than in the regular times. V'zohi shamda l'dabilti yivka b'briuso. And this helped the Brisker Rav that he shouldn't have any problems with his health. He remained healthy despite the fact that he was not eating the food that he needed for his health. Amazing thing. Says the Al-Sheikh. Yoimar ma shenavakish hu yeh lanu shomer lekimach sela bal nipo. The passuk says that when we ask or whatever we ask for, Hashem will be there. Hashem will protect us that we should not fall. For like we said before, and God will give us strength to throw down our enemies, to get rid of our enemies. Says Rabbi Tzara in Tzar Levakish al Zeh. Says the Al-Shif an amazing thing. It's not necessary in times of troubles to even ask for help. God is a helper when you have, Hashem is Ezra B'tzaris, Nimsamoid. He is a helper in problems. When you have problems, Hashem is there to help. He's very much there. He's so much there. It means to say that that's his natural, that's one of the essences of God's being, as it were, is that he's a helper. You're in trouble, he's there. It's not like you have to even ask for him to come. Ezra B'tzaris Kvar Nimsamoid, he's already there, he's already found, he's already very much found. That, and this is what I said earlier, through the very problems themselves that come through God's attribute of justice, God brings upon us, heaven forbid, challenging times. But God comes along with the challenging times. God is right there with us in the challenging times. So although, yes, it's difficult, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for closeness to Hashem. Amazing thing. It's especially appropriate now we're in the 3 weeks. Shavas Tammuz today, the 17th of Tammuz, the walls of the old city, walls of Jerusalem were breached. In the first temple, the second temple, able to come in, kill many Jews. They were able to come in and eventually, after 3 weeks, destroy the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple, which were waiting for its immediate rebuilding. Imminent is the word I'm looking for. It's imminent rebuilding. But the difficulty that we're in, the feelings, Hashem, we've been in this land, we've had a Jewish presence in a strong way for 76 years. Where's the Beis Hamikdash already? Where's the temple? I was thinking about this, we've been here for so long, we still don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Why don't we get up and build one? We could bring Karbanis. Why don't we bring Karbanis? These kinds of questions come up, especially now in the 3 weeks. And I was contemplating this, and I thought, the first 19 years that we officially had a Jewish state, from 1948 to 1967, we couldn't even get into Jerusalem. So can you imagine? We couldn't even get into the old city, couldn't get to the Kaisel. Can you imagine the despair, the despondency that one could feel? Oh, we have the land of Israel, we don't have Jerusalem. We don't have Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh. We don't have Har HaMoriah, Har HaBayis. What a terrible situation. And then after 19 years, all of a sudden, Hashem gave it back to us. Hashem gave it back to us for the first time in 1900 years. Jewish sovereignty over the old city, over Jerusalem. It's an amazing thing. And maybe we have to wait 76 years, or maybe a little longer, Chas v'shalom, for our Beis Hamikdash to, in a moment, it can change in a moment. It doesn't take a lot. But certainly, it's these moments that we're in right now, like these moments we're in now, where the challenges are coming hard and fast. It's a special time to know, first of all, that Hashem is near. Hashem is nearby. We don't even have to ask him to come. But besides that, it's an opportunity for prayer. It's a time for prayer. It's a time to daven. Alongside davening, that the hostages should be returned, alongside praying for peace and safety in the land of Israel, for Jews throughout the world. Alongside that, we need to also be praying for the return of Hashem's honor, for the Beis Hamikdash, for the temple, for the return of the Jewish people's honor. Here he brings down on the bottom, excuse me. He says, you should see an amazing thing in the Sefer Amas B'Glev Hashem from Rav Avram ben Arambam. When a person finds himself in difficulty, You should trust in the one who has in his hands the souls of all living things. God is the one who punished you with this difficulty. It's not comfortable for the Western ear to hear that something that happened bad to me is because of myself. The example that it's giving in the Sefer HaMaspik is talking about where someone was bitten by a snake. Hashem punished that person with the snake bite. But Hashem also gives you the strength through His Midas Hadin, through His divine judgment, to be able to sustain, to be sustained, to receive and get through the pain and the difficulty of the snake bite. How? Because God will have mercy on you. He will save you with His kindness. Just like He judged you with His judgment. There's a ta'alich. There's a process that we go through. Sometimes a person experiences din. Sometimes the Jewish people experiences this judgment. That's what it seems to be right now. But God doesn't just judge and destroy and leave to die. That's not how Hashem does things. Hashem judges, but His judgment is followed by kindness. He gives us a difficulty, and at the same time gives us the strength to withstand the difficulty. There are those who say, in Baruch Shamar, we say, Baruch Goizeru Makayim, which literally means that blessed is the one who makes a decree and keeps his decree. He makes a promise, he keeps his promise. But there's another explanation, Baruch Goizeru Makayim, that God sometimes decrees that a person has to go through a challenge, Umekayim, but He sustains the person throughout the time that he goes through that challenge. He finishes off here on the note and says, you need to feel, in that moment, it's an opportunity to notice and recognize and sense that although it's a difficult time, Hashem is with you, Hashem is with me, Hashem is with us in the difficulty, sustaining us. He's there with us. He's available to us, especially in the time of challenge. Thank you so much for listening. See you again next time.